Okay, so I'm going to carry on with the project from yesterday and just carry on as I was, just porting more of the functions from JavaScript that are currently implemented as foreign imports into PureScript code. So since yesterday I actually did a little bit of work just porting the default bundle and execute and bundle and execute thermite functions. So what I did there was to basically make a little foreign wrapper around the jQuery get API with done and failed continuations, and then pull that in, here into as a foreign import, and then wrap it up in const. And the reason I wrapped it up in const is that I wanted to use path traverse in order to pull the multiple dependencies that I had for the thermite backend. And everything else was essentially just, straightforward ports of what was already there. Okay, so let's see what I can port next. This function looks reasonably straightforward to port using the existing jQuery bindings. At least I could break it down, into a few smaller functions. Let's see if this is used in the JavaScript code. Okay, it's not. Let's see where it's used in the PureScript code. So there's the import. It's used in setup editor, and that's it actually. So maybe I could even end up inlining this into setup editor. Okay, so why not? Let's do this one. Let's bring this out. Let's start at PSCID. Let's get rid of load options, or rather, let's just move it down. Okay, and then let's see. So load options is going to be a fun2. I think I need to restart this. There we go. An fun2, and it's going to take some exports. What did I call those before? Called exports. Okay, fine. And it's going to take a backend config, and it's going to return unit. Okay. Let's paste in the JavaScript that we had before. So here's the load options as it was in JavaScript. And we can just start implementing this. So the first thing we do is we select the backend element on the menu, and we set its attribute checked to the value checked. Okay, so we can do that by saying select. We give that a selector, so it looks like I need to pass hash backend underscore composed with backend dot. So here I think I want to open up this new type, backend dot backend. Okay. Let's see if I do a bind. I think I can say attribute. Okay, so that takes a list, an object of attributes first, and then the jQuery object. Okay, perfect. So, well, let's bring that into scope. So this is a little loosely typed in PureScript. It's any record. Maybe in the jQuery bindings it would be nice to make that a little more strongly typed. But it's kind of nice because now we can just say checked. It's checked. Actually, I think there's a set. Yeah, okay, actually, this one's a little more nicely typed. We can say, well, actually, it doesn't make much of a difference. This one's loosely typed too. Okay, so let's go with Atra. That's fine. That seems to build. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Okay, we're going to need a foreign import for this query string plugin thing. Actually, since last time, one other thing I did was to get rid of that setup function that I added last time, and to actually bring the sort of like general setup type scripts into a global script. So now in the PureScript code, we can just sort of assume that those jQuery plugins are going to be around. So now I can add a foreign import for a little wrapper around this query string functionality. So we'll call this get query string. and it's going to have type for all f fun1 of let's say DOM, like we've been doing. It's going to take a string for the key and it's going to return a string. And the comment can say get the value of the query string parameter from the jQuery plugin. Okay, and this should probably complain saying that that's not defined, and that's fine, we can do that here. So exports.get query string is a function from key, and it's just going to return $$.query string of key. And that's it. Okay, so then this should compile now, and we can start porting more of this code. So I can say let view mode equal get query string of view, and then this if is probably going to become a when, which is quite nice. So that's going to be from control. Well, I can bring it from control 1 out, I suppose. So when some boolean is true, I'm going to say select this, and then hopefully there's a function called click, which I can substitute in here. View mode, oh right, of course, so this is effectful. B has type boolean, so let's see, if view mode and, oh, okay, so interesting. This is actually going to, by the looks of it, this is actually going to return a nullable thing, so we can be a little, we can do a little better in PureScript hopefully and return a nullable type. For that we can use PureScript nullable. So hopefully I already have that here. Yeah, I do. Okay, that's already in scope. I'll bring that in, and then to turn this into a maybe, we'll just use toMaybe from nullable. Okay. So here we can say case view mode of. Maybe we can be a little smarter here. I'm thinking maybe we can use a view pattern or something along those lines. Let's see. So unfortunately I can't guard on this. Sorry, not a view pattern, I mean a pattern guard, but unfortunately we can't have guards here, so I would have to do something like this, just view mode. Yeah, this is a little silly. So actually, come to think of it, this is another nice job for a little, another enum type. Okay, so we can say case view mode of, and if it's well, what we can say is we can actually use the any combinator, which would be quite nice. So any as applied to a maybe means that either the thing is, well, it has to be, because we want it to be true for anything, it has to be true for the only thing that could be in a maybe, which means it has to be a just. The maybe has to be a just, and the thing inside the just has to satisfy the predicate, which works out quite nicely. But the problem is I want to bring in view mode into scope here. Okay, so let's just do this the long way. We can say case view mode of, and if it's just view mode, and I use an underscore or something, where view mode is an element of this set. We have side by side code. Oops. then we're gonna execute this block. If it's anything else, we're just gonna carry on. So just into scope. This function is not in scope. Let's do that. That's in foldable. View mode should be view mode underscore, and then click. Okay. So hopefully this is already in the jQuery library. Let's see. Click. jQuery. Okay, I don't see it in the jQuery library. Maybe I have to just bring this into scope. Oops. It should be jQuery. Maybe we just have to bring this into scope ourselves using a foreign import. Okay, doesn't seem to be there. A couple of things. We're sort of gathering a few things we can add to the jQuery library here. That's fine, and we'll end up pulling some of these things into different modules anyway. Okay, so click is going to have type for all f. jQuery goes to f of DOM, with f of unit. And we can say that's going to simulate a click event on the specified elements. Okay, and then obviously this isn't implemented, so we can go in here. Click. That's going to be the jQuery element. And we're going to just say jq.click. That's it. Few redundant imports. Okay. So let's see. That's this piece done. So now we can get the next query string. It's called show.js. That's going to be 2 maybe of RunXFT get query string. These are the sort of things we probably want to pull out into little wrappers. Maybe we can just do that now. So this is going to be called get query string maybe. It's going to have this type f. We'll make this a maybe, and we'll make this an actual string argument. Get query string maybe of s equals exactly what we have here. We can make this a little point free. Okay, so then this is going to use get query string maybe. This is going to use get query string maybe. It's going to be called JS. Okay, and then this is going to give okay, so we can say case show.js of if it's anything inside of just, and we'll do some work, otherwise do nothing. And then here we need to select this thing and set a property. So select something, and then we're going to use prop. Is that available? Set prop, perhaps? Okay, there it is. Takes a string and a value, and the string is checked. And then we're going to look for this value in here. So this seems like the sort of thing we might want to tidy up with. Do this a little differently in PureScript later. But for now, we can just port it as is and just start benefiting from the type system. Okay. Let's save. Couldn't match string with maybe string because that needs an underscore. Good. Okay. This might be a good time to just try and compile this and see how it goes. So right now we should expect the show.js. The show.js checkbox to work, and the view mode checkboxes all to work. So let's see if that works. So I'll refresh. View mode seems to be setting the styles correctly, which is nice. Show.js is checking the checkbox, which is correct. And compile is not, that's to be expected because we haven't implemented that yet. Okay, so let's do auto compile. This looks very similar actually. It looks very similar to this. Maybe we can just pull that into a function. But, well, we'll just keep it as is for now. We can do that refactoring later. I want to just get things into a state where we can do refactoring later. Let's see. So show.js is called autocompile now. Oops. Autocompile underscore. It's all the same. Select. This looks good. Okay, so the checked property to autocompile is true. Okay. Now the gist argument. Okay, so gist is get query string maybe gist, and let's see what we do with this. So if gist is just, then we're going to set the link href attribute to actually link to the gist. Otherwise, we're going to hide that element. That seems like something reasonably simple. So case gist of. Okay, so if it's just underscore, then we'll do something. Otherwise, we will select this element and hide it. Let's go back into PureScript. Okay. So we want to select viewGist. Just nab that from here. And then set an attribute. Do that with attra. Yes. So we want to set href to be this. Alright, making progress. So let's test those out. Okay. Refresh. So now the compile checkbox seems to be working, which is good. So if I change some code here, this now doesn't compile. If I click this, change, it does, so that's good. And I don't have a gist here, so hopefully the gist link is not there, which is good. If I go to records, now the gist link is there, and hopefully this links to the gist, which is good. It does. Alright, fantastic. So let's do the last part. Okay, so we're setting up a change event listener here, so it's selecting this selector. And then we're going to use on like we did last time. I think this is the callback, but let's just make sure. PSCID. Okay, so let's say we need the event, and we presumably don't need the reference to the jQuery object. I don't see it here. It's this reference, so that's fine. So we've gotten rid of this piece. The last thing we're going to do is call hide menus, so let's just do that here. And then this all belongs here. So let's figure out how to put this. Okay, so the first thing we do is call get backend, which we can do more easily on the PureScript side, of course, so let's do that. Okay, so here we're doing, oh, we do use this reference, okay, that's fine, so let's call this JQ. So we're going to call get backend, and we're doing it using this dot filter. Okay, we didn't have a filter. If I seem to remember correctly, we didn't actually have a filter function in the jQuery library, so let's just add that now. We can call this filter, and it's going to take jQuery and the selector. It's going to just look like this. Okay, we'll import it here. filter elements based on conditional selector. It's going to take selector, and it's going to give me back jQuery element. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is filter JQ by the checked pseudo selector, and then I'm going to have to get the value of that thing, whatever that might mean. Presumably, I will need to get a string, from that. The value of the checkbox, and once I have that, then I'm going to pass that to get backend. So it's going to look like get backend from string applied to some wrapper for val, and we're going to have to find a suitable type for that, and that's going to be backend. Saying it can't match jQuery with string, possibly because I need to wrap this in parentheses. Yes, okay. So val has type jQuery to string, which seems correct, but my concern here is that if the jQuery selector has matched multiple things, then this is not going to return a single string. It's going to return something like an array of strings. So I just want to test this out, and then we can eventually look at the jQuery documentation. So let's see, I can search for something like all A elements. That'll definitely return multiple things. And then I can say, well, the best thing would be to look for input checked elements. I have 3 of those, okay. If I call val on that, okay, I seem to just get the first one. Okay, what if I select something that has no elements? Invalid selector, then I get undefined. Okay, so that's fine. Maybe then what I can do is to use the nullable type like I did here. So let's write another jQuery wrapper here. Get the value of the first match if it exists. So going to take a jQuery selector, and it's going to give me a nullable string. Perfect. If we save this, this will probably complain. Well, here I can just start using get value, but this is going to complain that the foreign imports are wrong. RunXFT1. Let's do make a little wrapper like we did here. We'll call this one get value maybe. This one will take the jQuery elements, and then here we can just call get value maybe. Okay, so now we have a maybe string, and I need a string. So I'm just going to use a map, and that'll give me a maybe backend config. Or actually, what I can do is, if this is nullable, I could possibly just assume this is the core backend, which is what the original JavaScript code would be doing. So let's see, if I put an F in here, probably the wrong place. Let's put an F in here. Okay, so I need to do a map of from maybe. We'll use the core backend. Okay, get value is not defined, but we can define that now. So that's just like this one. Let's get value. There's no second argument. Have we're just calling val. Okay. It's saying backend was shadowed. Okay, fair enough, because I used this name here. So this actually was shadowed in the original JavaScript code, so I'm going to call this new backend because this is when we're selecting a new backend. Okay, so the next step is if the user confirms that they want to replace their code, then we go ahead and navigate to that URL. So this looks like a couple of foreign imports we can add. So let's see. So we'll run a function called confirm, which we'll have to write. Basically just nav this string here. Okay, so confirm is going to take a string and it's going to hopefully return a boolean. So let's write that function. Confirm. Present the user with a confirmation dialog. Okay, so this is going to take a string. It's going to return unit. I think I'm going to actually just use F for this. Okay, and then confirm. We'll just use confirm. Actually, while we're at it, let's make a wrapper for location href. This is probably something I can pull in from a library, but you know it's so simple to just write a little wrapper. So let's do that. Navigate to specified URL. So we're going to give a string, and it's going to navigate to that URL. Okay, so if the user says it's okay, then we're going to navigate to this URL. Backend equals followed by the new backend's backend code. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. Okay, so it's saying that it could not match the type unit with boolean. Probably because here we go. Oops. I gave the wrong type to this function. Okay, so now it's complaining that something else has this type. Actually, I'm just going to go fill in these implementations. So we had confirm and we had navigate to. Okay, so for confirm, I'm just going to call window.confirm the message. And for navigate to, I'm just going to use location.href equals URL, where URL is the argument. And I used the F type for these, so I'm going to use the appropriate representation. Okay. And then still, we have this something else function to write. So at this point, we're down to here. Okay, so I believe there is actually a function called setTimeout. But maybe I need to import it. So I think it's in a package called JS timers. We'll see. Good. Okay. Okay, let's run pscid. Maybe it can find the function for us if we get this the right way around. So if I ask for 1000 milliseconds, no, this was unlikely, wasn't it? Let's try using set. Oh, there it is. It just found it automatically. Okay, so we don't care about the timeout ID. That's okay, so we'll just void out the result. We do need to bring in this timer effect. So let's add that here. Okay, X has the type F. That sounds right. Let's see. We can say void of set timeout do. So the first thing we're going to do is compile, and that takes an exported functions. So we'll do run fun1 compile exported functions. And the second thing we need to do is cache the current code. Okay, so run fun. That's an fun1 cache current code. Oops. And that just takes the backend, which in this case would be BC underscore. That seems like it might be correct. Okay, what's next? So line 61. Could not match. Okay, so we're missing a timer effect somewhere. Let's figure out where that's going to go. Line 61, here it is. Setup editor. Right, so setup editor has the wrong type. So we can fix that by adding, whoops, by adding that type signature right there. Setup editor seems to be unhappy. Oh, because setup, interesting. Setup editor uses actually uses exported functions now. Maybe we can find a way to avoid that in a second. Okay, what's the complaint here? This seems to need a timer effect. Okay, let's see if we can figure out this setup editor problem. So first point is setup editor still used here? Okay, it is, in a few places. So we can't remove setup editor from the exported functions. Next question is setup editor used in this file? Only to export it, apparently. So then you need to give exported functions to the function we just wrote, which is load options. But actually we don't need to anymore because this function is written in PureScript, so we have the functions available that we need. So there's actually no need for that. We can just use an fun1. Okay. Where's load options used? Here. Okay, so we don't need exports here anymore. Now setup editor still seems to be using. Well, let's go back to load options. Load options is using exported functions that gets passed to compile. Okay, so load options uses exported functions. Exported functions uses setup editor, and setup editor uses load options, and that's the problem. So this is something of a problem. Ideally, we would be able to fix this by just moving something like the code for compile into the PureScript code. So let's have a look how complex that is. Actually, this is a little too complicated. I don't particularly want to take this on right now. Let's see if we have any other options. We can't break the cycle here necessarily. We can't really have setup editor not depend on load options. And we can't really have exported functions not depend on setup editor because we really do need to be able to call setup editor from here. Is there any simple way to make it so that we don't need to call setup editor in here? Maybe if we make load from gist, maybe if we port the load from gist function and the with session function, both of which look relatively simple, into PureScript, then one option we could have is to remove setup editor from the exported functions. That would break the cycle. Another option is to make the exported function structure lazy in some sense. so that we can initialize it lazily. But that's sort of, you know, this approach is getting a little complicated already. So that's not particularly something I want to try. Okay, so maybe we can just press on, and then we can figure this out later once we've ported a little more code. Okay, so the first one I'll do is with session. So let's do that next. Okay, where's with session in here? Let's close this. Where's with session? Whoops, with session, here it is. So let's port this function. Here's the JavaScript code. Okay, so with session is going to be, well, we don't need exported functions anymore, just like we didn't need it before. We're going to make an f1. We're going to bring the session ID in, and we'll do some work. Okay, so X has this type. We need to get the cached backend first of all, so let's do that. So let's get, where's this function defined? Try restore cached code. That's going to return, that says this returns a unit, but that's obviously wrong. Let's have a look at the JavaScript. Try restore cached code. This returns a backend. What's backend? That seems to be a string. Okay. So we should change this to be a string. Except for that, it also could return nothing. So let's make this a nullable string. And just like we had before, we may as well just wrap this up. So for all f, I'll take string and get f of a maybe string. Okay, let's see if we can just nab the code we had before. There it is. There we go. Okay, so next has this type, and now we have cache backend, which is a maybe string. So here we case on that. So let's case on cache backend here, and if it's a just, then we'll do something here, and if it's nothing, then we'll do this branch down here. Okay, so in here we seem to be calling setup editor, and setup editor has type f12. So let's use a run f12. Okay, and then we have to provide pers imports. That was something we needed in here, but here we can just use exported functions. And then we have to get the backend for for the thing with that name. I can't remember the name of the function, so I'll just use a placeholder. Setup editor is not defined here. Line 32. There seems to be a problem. So this wants an f and 2. Maybe I can just fake this for now, and then we'll come back to this later. Okay, so line 136. Here we are. This needs a timer effect. Okay, string to backend config. Apparently the function I need is get a backend from string. Now I remember. Let's use that. Okay, so why it corresponds to this code. So let's just reduce this down to the code we have to actually port. There's going to be 3 things to do here. So the first thing is going to be to get the backend Well, the first thing to do is going to be to get the query string called backend. And that will be called, well, we'll call get backend from string on that. This will be called backend. Except that we can use from maybe to provide a default, just like we did in the JavaScript code. And then we can just use a type hole for what to do next. Okay, and here backend has type backend config. Fantastic. Okay, let's get the gist property next. So gist is going to be a query string again called gist, or it's going to be the main gist for the backend. And the backend is, well, you can unpack it like this. And finally, now that we have gist, which is a string in scope, we need to write the final line, which is going to be to load from gist, which has type fn3. We have to provide the pers inputs, which is of course exported functions, and two more things. So x is going to be a string, that's just gist, and y is going to be a backend config, and that of course is this reference. Okay, the compiler looks unhappy at line 58. With session no longer takes exported functions, of course, so we don't need to do that anymore. And this is quite nice, now we can just run with session here. Timer effect is needed here. Okay. Timer effect is also needed in main. That's fine. Just pushing these things up into main, and we're done. Fantastic. Actually, the issue just sort of resolved itself. Oh well, no, of course it didn't. Now we have the this problem here, which I expect to sort of show up at runtime. Let's just sort of see when that's going to happen. I expect it to happen very quickly. Oh, actually it didn't. That's sort of surprising. So it only happens when I have to call setup editor from a JavaScript function, which apparently doesn't happen very often. So maybe for testing this isn't actually so much of a big problem. But obviously we're going to have to come back and fix this. Okay, so making good progress here. What was the next function? I'm trying to basically eliminate the calls to setup editor. Which basically means removing this function next, which is load from gist. So let's find that one. Okay, so let's implement this. Here's the JavaScript. It's an fn3. I don't need the exported functions anymore, which actually makes it an fn2. Which means I can call this with fn2 here now, which is nice. We can make fn2, and we're going to need the ID, which I'll rename because that obviously shadows the prelude, and the backend. Okay. So in this case, I need to make an AJAX call to get the gist, which I'm actually not going to wrap this entire AJAX functionality because I already have an abstract data type that I created called, where's it gone? Called gistinfo. So I'm just going to make a little wrapper which will return that abstract data type. So let's call it getGist by ID, and that's going to take an ID, and it's going to take a done callback and a fail callback. Okay, so we're going to make a call to this API using the JSON data type. Let's see what's next. So I need to have a done callback. That's fine. And I presumably need to have a failed callback too. Okay. So in the done callback, do like I did before. Just call these directly. Okay, so let's give a type to this thing. Where's my gist info? Here. So let's add a comment first. We want this to get a gist by its ID. For an input, get gist by ID is going to have type for all f from 3 of some effect, sticking with our current scheme, URI, some callback, some other callback, and that's going to return unit. And I need to find a type for these, so let's have a look at what I did for get, because it's probably going to be something similar. It's going to look a little bit like this. Except here, I'm going to actually return gist info. Let's space this out a little bit. Okay. Let's see if that compiles. Well, I need to do a little work here. So the first thing I'm going to do is say get gist by ID, pass the ID, and then I'm going to have 2 callbacks. Okay, well I need to add a run f3 for a start. Okay, so let's write the done callback. Or actually, maybe I can write a little contt wrapper again, that might come in handy. Okay, the wrapper for get gist by ID, which uses contt. This is going to return a gist info. That looks about right. Okay. So now, instead of using that, I'll use RunXFT. Let's do this incrementally. So I want to do something with get gist by ID contt. Okay, so I probably want to use RunXFT first of all, because that's the outer constructor. And of course I need to pass that an ID. Okay, so now I have a contt, so I should be able to use run contt, and that's going to take contt and then a callback. So let's make a type-hole for the callback. Okay, so now the nice thing is that I actually have an either parameter here that I can use. So I can use a lambda case, which is kind of nice. Okay, so if I have a left error, that's going to be like this fail case here. I can do something. I can say log the fact that I wasn't able to load the gist metadata, and then set it the editor. And that's an f12. It takes the exported functions, and it takes the backend. Okay, so I need to add some effects here. Okay, this looks promising. So if I get a gist info, I'm going to do something else. Let's see, what do I do in this case? Now I try to load the file from gist. Okay, this looks like a good job for contt again later, and I can actually just start binding these things together, which is nice. But for now, we'll just do the obvious thing. So we'll say we want to try a load file from gist, and we need to provide it with gist info, and we want the main file. suggests that I can use RunXFT, which is handy. And this thing, presumably I've typed this poorly again. Yeah. Okay. So actually, when I load file from gist, I see. So I need to actually provide a done callback, and I need to provide a failed callback. So let's modify this so that that becomes true. Okay, now this is going to be a function of 4 arguments, and it's going to take 2 callbacks. It's going to take the gist info, a file name, and these 2 callbacks. Okay. Is this typed correctly? So when I get code back, that's presumably going to be a string. So that's correct. So I should get a string. Okay. Now, of course, this is going to fail. We can use RunXFT. Actually, maybe we can just do the contt transformation right now. Contt. Okay, so this is going to take gist info and a string, and it's going to give me back an accept t string. Let's steal this. Here we go. This. So I'm going to run f1.4 of try load file from gist with the gist info and file name and 2 callbacks. Full tidy. Okay, so now actually all I need to do is to add the computation in a bind inside the contt monad. So here I get the gist info, and I can say that I want to try to load the file from gist. The file is called main.pers. Okay, and here I'm going to actually skip all the way to getting the code back. And unfortunately my 2 errors are going to be combined, but you know, that's fine. And in fact we can show the error on the console to give a little more context. Okay, so now I have the code. I basically just need to run these 2 lines. Okay, so if the code is not empty, then I just need to set the code on the code text area. So I believe there's actually I think there's something called set value. Okay, there is. Fantastic. Wait, is there something called get value? I believe it looks like I actually got this wrong before, and that there was actually a function that I could have used. But that's okay, let's just leave it at that. So let's select the code text area, and we're going to set the value to something. We need to import this, and then we need to set up the editor. So actually we can just pull this out in here. easier to just leave this as it is actually for now. Okay, so we need to set the value to, let's see, what are we doing here? Oh, to code, of course. Right. Okay, looks like we just have a bunch of effects that we need to tidy up at this point, which basically means adding console to everything. So on line 186, we can add it here. Oops. This line, add it here, and of course all the way in main, we can add it here. You know, I don't like this name init. I'm just going to inline this into main. Okay, perfect. So we still obviously have this one remaining problem, which is that this function is undefined. But now we don't actually use this on the JS side. We use setOfEditor with, but we don't use setOfEditor. So we can actually just delete this, and hopefully the problem will go away, but I guess we'll find out. It would appear that's all the usages. Okay. Fantastic. Looks like it's actually worked. So let's build and see if everything works. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, so that seems to work. That's great. Let's try a gist. So loading gists works. That's great. So looks like compt is doing its job nicely. Let's try loading a gist which doesn't exist. Oh, I should remove the session ID. Okay, it says unable to load gist metadata. Oh, that's the old error message. That's odd. The code isn't actually appearing here. Then I get refreshed. It looks like it didn't get refreshed. What's going on? Let's see if I can do a hard refresh. Oh, okay, that's what was needed. Let's try loading a gist. Okay, good, it still works. So let's try loading a gist that doesn't exist. Now it says unable to load gist metadata or contents. Fantastic. Except the type is wrong. This obviously wasn't an object. So let's find out what happened. I should have got a string, but obviously I didn't get a string. Let's try and see what I did get. I got this jQuery object. Well, I can take response text or status text, either one would work. Let's take status text, that would be something nice and succinct that we can put in. So here's try load gist, and then we're going to have to just replace this with a little function. We can call our fail continuation with error.statusText. And obviously we need to do the same thing here. Okay, let's try that. We'll do a hard refresh. Doesn't seem to be happy. Let's try a build. That doesn't seem to be the issue. Let's see if the JavaScript code got updated in the browser. Here it is. Oh, it did. Let's put a breakpoint in here. Oh, so it actually wasn't this continuation that was getting called. That's why that's not working. Let's see. We might have called this continuation. And actually, while we're at it, we should just fix up this one. Okay, let's try again. Okay, great. The error is not found this time. That's great. So now we actually have some context. Let's just quickly test a couple of other things. We tested that we could load something here. Let's try a different backend. Try Flare for a change. That seems to be working. That's great. Let's try the view mode options. Those seem to be working. Let's try the gist link. Make sure that's still working. There it is. That's good. Share was working last time. Show jest seems to be working. Can we change the code? Okay, that works too. Alright, so this is great. So I'm going to call it a day there. I made some good progress. You know, a lot of these foreign functions are starting to get tidied up. I'm going to sort of pull some of these out now. Yeah, it's looking pretty nice. We still have obviously a lot of code to port, which I'll carry on with next time. But it's starting to come together. A lot of the logic is moved into PureScript. We're reducing the amount of JavaScript code. We're starting to benefit from the type system. So I think it's going well. I'll push these changes, and next time, I'll carry on porting some of these things over to PureScript. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.